Julian Cross was 12 the first time he thought about disappearing. Not running away, not hiding, just ceasing to exist. The calculus exam trembled in his hands, 63%. Red ink, like blood, like proof of everything his father already believed. Julian was broken. Worthless. A mistake wearing the Cross family name. Look at me. Richard Cross didn't need to raise his voice. A whisper from him could crush. Julian raised his eyes. The study smelled of leather, mahogany, and disappointment. His father sat behind the massive desk, hands folded, expression carved from ice. The late afternoon sun slanted through the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning Richard into judge, executioner. Explain this. Julian's mouth opened. Nothing came out. Not sound. Not air. Nothing. His heart pounded like a trapped animal. The numbers blurred. 63. Failure. I asked you a question. Richard's voice dropped lower. Colder. Explain how the son of Richard Cross, the boy who will inherit a billion-dollar empire, scores a 63 on a basic calculus exam. I tried. I studied until... You tried. The word dripped with contempt. Do you know how pathetic that sounds? Champions don't try. They succeed. They excel. They prove they deserve their name. What do you deserve, Julian? The question landed like a fist to the stomach. Nothing. I deserve nothing. Your tutor is incompetent. I'll fire him tonight. You'll study 6 hours tomorrow. No exceptions. Below 90 on the retest? Military school. Again. Julian's legs moved on autopilot. For steps down the hall. Then they buckled. He caught himself against the wall, gasping. 6 hours tomorrow. 90%. Military school. He'd already given everything he had. 63% was all that remained. Maybe everyone would be better off if I just... Julian. The voice was soft, careful. Seeing him, he jerked his head up. Tears burned his cheeks. The maid. Invisible for years. Forgotten. Ellie something. But in her eyes, he saw something he hadn't felt in forever. Kindness. She set down the laundry basket. Took one step closer. Come with me, she said quietly. Julian should have said no. He should have gone to his room, locked the door, disappeared into the numbness. But he nodded and followed the invisible woman who was about to change everything. Ellie's room was impossibly small. Tucked behind the kitchen, barely larger than a closet, a narrow bed, one wooden chair, a single shelf crammed with books. But it was the books that made Julian's breath catch. Calculus, differential equations, linear algebra, quantum mechanics. These weren't how to fix your sink books. These were university textbooks. Advanced, some with MIT logos, others covered in tiny, precise handwriting, notes, proofs, corrections. Sit, Ellie said gently, pressing a water bottle into his shaking hands. Breathe first. Everything else comes after breathing. She didn't ask questions, didn't demand explanations. Just waited by the small window while Julian's panic slowly receded, his heartbeat returning to something almost normal. When he could finally speak, the words tumbled out. I'm going to fail. No matter what I do, he'll never. I can't be what he wants. Ellie tilted her head. She was younger than Julian had thought, maybe late 20s, with dark hair pulled back and eyes that looked both kind and impossibly sad, like someone who understood loss. What do you want, Julian? She asked. No one had ever asked him that. His throat tightened. I just want him to see me as something other than a disappointment. Your father sees his own fears when he looks at you. That's not your truth. Ellie crossed to the shelf, fingers trailing along the spines. She pulled out a calculus textbook, the same one Julian had been failing, and opened it. The margins exploded with notes. Alternative methods. Elegant shortcuts. Solutions Julian had never seen. You wrote all this? He whispered. Something flickered in her expression. Old pain. I know a lot of things. But you're He stopped, horrified. A maid. Ellie smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I am. But I wasn't always. She paused. Once upon a time, I was supposed to go to MIT. Full scholarship. I was going to study mathematics. Julian's eyes widened. What happened? Life. The single word carried years of weight. But that's a story for another time. She set the book on the chair. Right now, We need to talk about you. Your tutor teaches you to memorize formulas like a trained monkey. That's not learning. Do you want to actually understand this? Or just survive it? Hope flickered, fragile and terrifying. Understand. Then we start over. Ellie's eyes met his, fierce and certain. Your father leaves at 7 every morning. Comes back after 8. We have 6 hours. I'll teach you the way I learned, the way mathematics is supposed to be. Beautiful, logical, something you see instead of fear. Why would you help me? Ellie's smile turned achingly sad. Because once I was a kid who loved numbers, and no one gave me a second chance. But maybe I can give you one. Julian stared at the annotated textbook, at this invisible woman offering salvation. Tomorrow afternoon, Ellie said. After your tutor leaves. We start then. Okay, Julian whispered. What he didn't know, what he couldn't know, was that this decision would save more than just his grades. It would save both their lives. The transformation happened faster than Julian thought possible. Every afternoon at 2 p.m., his regular tutor left. Every afternoon at 2:05, Ellie appeared in the library like a secret. She didn't teach like anyone else. She taught like mathematics was a language he'd been speaking wrong his whole life, and she was showing him the grammar, the poetry, the sense hidden underneath the fear. Derivatives became stories. Equations became puzzles. For the first time, numbers clicked. 2 weeks later, Julian took the retest. His pencil moved steadily. No panic, no blanking. The problems unfolded like maps he'd learned to read. When he finished, his hands weren't shaking. 3 days later, the summons. Julian stood in his father's study again, stomach churning. Certain history would repeat. The test lay on the desk between them. Dr. Vance, the new academic supervisor, sat in the corner, tablet glowing. Richard picked up the exam. 96%. The words didn't make sense. Julian blinked. What? 96%. Perfect methodology. You even corrected an error in the test itself. Richard's expression was unreadable. Explain how you improved 33 points in 2 weeks. Ice flooded Julian's veins. I used online resources. MIT OpenCourseWare. You're lying. Richard's voice cracked like a whip. You've never shown initiative in your life. Someone helped you. Someone with considerable expertise. He stepped closer, towering. Who? Julian's pulse roared. Don't tell. Don't tell. She'll lose everything. I'm asking one more time. Who? Helped. You. The door opened. I did. Ellie stood in the doorway, chin raised, uniform perfect, eyes steady despite the tremor in her hands. I've been tutoring him, she said quietly. Every afternoon while you were at work. The silence was deafening. Richard stared at her like she'd materialized from another dimension. My maid taught my son university-level mathematics. He laughed sharp, ugly. Is this a joke? No, sir. Then you're fired. Pack your... Wait. Dr. Vance stood, her severe expression thoughtful. Before you do something rash, Mr. Cross, perhaps you should ask how your maid knows advanced calculus. Everyone turned to Ellie. Julian saw fear and pride wore across her face. Because, Ellie said, voice quiet but unwavering, 10 years ago I won a national math Olympiad. First place. Perfect score. She paused. MIT offered me a full scholarship. So did Stanford, Princeton, and Caltech. The room went dead silent. Dr. Vance was already typing. 10 seconds passed. 20. Eleanor Malone. Dr. Vance read aloud. National Math Olympiad Champion, 2014. Led her team to gold. Multiple scholarship offers from top institutions. She looked up, something like respect in her eyes. It's all verified. Richard's face drained of color. Julian's heart soared. She's real. She told the truth. She's brilliant. But Richard recovered fast. If you had a full ride to MIT, why are you scrubbing my floors? Ellie's expression shuddered. My mother was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer the week before I graduated high school. Someone had to work. Someone had to take care of her. Her voice remained level. By the time she died 8 months later, I had $60,000 in medical debt. The scholarships had expired. So yes, Mr. Cross. That's why I'm here. The silence crushed down. Richard stared at her for a long moment. Then he said 5 words that changed everything. Then you'll continue teaching him. Julian should have felt relief. Instead, dread coiled in his stomach as his father continued. Here's what's going to happen. Richard's voice was pure calculation. You'll tutor Julian every afternoon. You'll prepare him for semester exams and the Westbridge Academy entrance test. If his scores stay above 90%, I'll pay you. Separately from your housekeeping salary. $500 per week. Ellie's eyes widened slightly. And if he gets into Westbridge? Richard's smile was cold. I'll pay off your debt. All $60,000. Consider a performance bonus. The room tilted. Julian's breath caught. Westbridge, the most elite prep school in the state. He'd never been good enough to even apply. And now Ellie's entire future hung on whether he could get in. And if his scores drop? Ellie asked carefully. Then you're fired, the payments stop, and I'll ensure you never work in this city again. Richard's eyes glittered. Do we have an agreement? Ellie hesitated for only a moment. Yes, we do. Richard nodded, dismissing them both. Julian, go to your room. Julian left on numb legs, but he didn't go far. He pressed against the hallway wall, listening. Dr. Vance's voice drifted through. That was manipulative, Mr. Cross. That was motivation, Richard replied. For both of them. The weeks blurred together. Julian's grades climbed. 89, 92, 94, 96. Each success was a relief and a terror. Because the better he did, the higher his father's expectations climbed. And the more Ellie's freedom depended on his perfection. They worked every afternoon, and Julian began to notice things. The way Ellie's eyes lit up when solving a particularly elegant proof. The way she sometimes stared out the library window, lost in thoughts of a future she'd sacrificed. The way she believed in him, even when he couldn't believe in himself. One afternoon, Julian found her holding an MIT alumni magazine, tears streaming silently down her face. Ellie, she quickly wiped her eyes. I'm fine. They send these every year, even to people who never enrolled. Julian saw the cover. Smiling students, cutting-edge research, everything Ellie deserved. I'm sorry. Don't be. I made my choice. But her voice cracked. Before Julian could respond, his phone buzzed. A text from his father. Emergency board meeting in Singapore. Leaving tonight. Back in 1 month. Don't waste this opportunity. 1 month. For weeks of reduced pressure, of breathing room. But the next message made Julian's blood run cold. Dr. Vance will move into the guest house tomorrow. She'll proctor daily practice exams and report your scores to me. If you drop below 90% even once, Ms. Malone is terminated immediately. The Westbridge exam is in 3 weeks. Don't disappoint me. Julian's hands started shaking. Daily exams. Constant monitoring. No margin for error. No bad days. No humanity. And if he failed even once, Ellie lost everything. Julian? Ellie touched his shoulder. What's wrong? He showed her the messages. Her face went pale. Oh, Julian, I won't fail, he said, voice tight. I'll score 90 every single day. I can do this. But the fear in her eyes mirrored his own. Because they both knew the truth. Perfection was unsustainable. And his father had just made it mandatory. Dr. Vance arrived at dawn with a rolling suitcase and a tablet full of practice exams. She converted the dining room into a testing center. Timer, soundproofing, camera. Clinical. Cold. Efficient. Day 1. Calculus. Julian scored 92%. Acceptable, Dr. Vance said. Barely. Day 2. Physics. 90% exactly. You're cutting it dangerously close, Mr. Cross. Day 3. Julian's hand shook before he even sat down. Day 4. His sleep dropped to 5 hours. Day 5. 4 hours. Day 6. He couldn't remember the last time he'd eaten a full meal. Day 7. Richard called from Singapore. Dr. Vance says your scores are trending downward. 92, 90, 89. That's unacceptable. I expect 95% or higher by the end of this week, or the arrangement ends. 95%. On every exam. Starting now. Impossible. Day 9. Critical reasoning exam. Julian's brain felt like static. 3 hours of sleep. The problems blurred, twisted, mocked him. He checked his answers twice. but nothing felt certain. Dr. Vance graded it in silence. She looked up. 84%. The world stopped. That's below minimum threshold. She reached for her phone. I'll inform your father and terminate. Please. The word ripped from Julian's throat. Please, one more chance. One more exam. I'll do better, I promise. Dr. Vance studied him. One more. Tomorrow morning. Comprehensive mathematics. Below 90%, I make the call. No exceptions. Julian nodded, unable to speak. He stumbled to his room and broke. Julian couldn't stop shaking. Sobs tore through him, violent, silent, his whole body convulsing. He pressed his face into his pillow to muffle the sounds. The pressure was a living thing, crushing his chest, stealing his air. I'm going to fail her. I'm going to destroy everything. One exam. Tomorrow. 90% minimum. Or Ellie lost everything. He couldn't study. The formulas mocked him. The numbers swam. His mind circled the same thought. I'm not good enough. I've never been good enough. At midnight, a soft knock. Ellie slipped inside, took one look at the scattered textbooks, the tear-stained pillow, his red-rimmed eyes, and understood. How long have you known? She whispered. Since he left. Julian's voice broke. I didn't want you to worry. I thought I could handle it, but I can't. I'm going to ruin everything, and it's all my fault. Stop. Ellie knelt in front of him, taking his shaking hands. Listen to me. Your father weaponized my future to control you. That's not a test of your worth. That's cruelty. But if I fail tomorrow, then I lose a job I never should have needed in the first place. Her eyes glistened. But you're 12 years old, Julian. You shouldn't have to carry me. I want to. I want to be good enough. Ellie pulled him into a fierce hug. You already are. You always have been. She held him until the crying stopped, until his breathing steadied. Then she pulled back, eyes fierce. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to sleep. Real sleep. And tomorrow morning, we'll go to do something different. Different how? You'll see. But right now, rest. Your brain can't perform when it's this exhausted. She pulled the blankets back. Trust me. Julian wanted to argue, but exhaustion pulled him under. He slept. Dawn came soft and quiet. Ellie woke him gently. Come with me. She led him outside to the garden, to a stone bench overlooking roses his mother never looked at. The sky was just beginning to lighten, the air cool and clean. She handed him tea. Drink first. He obeyed, warmth spreading through him. Ellie sat beside him, silent, watching the sunrise. When I was preparing for the Olympiad, she finally said, I hit a wall 2 weeks before the competition. I was so terrified of failing, of wasting my shot, that I couldn't think. My mother found me crying at 2 a.m. What did she do? Closed my books, took me outside, made me look at the stars. Ellie's smile was sad and soft. She told me, baby girl, mathematics isn't about being perfect. It's about seeing patterns in chaos. And you can't see anything when you're drowning in fear. She turned to Julian. You know this material? Your issue isn't knowledge. It's terror. And terror makes you second-guess every answer, doubt every instinct. But what if I'm wrong? What if? Then we'll both survive it. Her voice was steel and silk. I've lost people, dreams, futures, and I'm still here, still fighting. She took his hand. But you're not going to fail. You're going to walk in there, breathe, and remember you're not alone. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket. If you get stuck, if the panic starts, read this. Julian took it, the paper warm from her hand. What is it? A reminder. She stood. Now, come on. Real breakfast, not protein bars. As they walked back, something shifted in Julian's chest. The fear remained. But beneath it, something else grew. Determination. If Ellie could lose MIT and still help him, he could fight through this. The exam was in 2 hours. He was ready. Dr. Vance set the timer. 90 minutes. Begin. Julian looked down. 20 problems. His heart hammered. Then he remembered the note. Under the desk, he unfolded it. You are brilliant not because you're perfect, but because you don't give up. I believe in you. Now believe in yourself. Julian took a deep breath. The numbers came into focus. He began. 73 minutes. Julian set down his pencil, hand steady. He'd worked through each problem carefully, methodically, the way Ellie taught him. When doubt crept in, he touched the note and breathed. Dr. Vance collected the test without expression. Wait in the library. The next 40 minutes were agony. Julian sat by the window, unable to read, unable to think, just waiting. His knee bounced. His stomach churned. Finally, Dr. Vance appeared. Come with me. Her face revealed nothing. In the dining room, the test lay on the table, marked in red. Sit. Julian sat, barely breathing. Dr. Vance picked up the test. In 15 years of academic evaluation, I've rarely seen improvement like this. From 63% to, she paused, 98%. Relief crashed through Julian so hard he nearly sobbed. 98. He'd done it. Ellie was safe. Everything. There's a problem. Julian's heart stopped. Dr. Vance's expression was grave. I administered this same exam to 3 other students this week. All high performers. All scored between 70 and 80%. She looked at him. You 2 weeks ago scored in the 60s consistently. Now you're outperforming students who've been training for a year. Ice flooded Julian's veins. I work hard. Ellie taught me. I believe you. But your father won't. Dr. Vance set down the test. This score is too good, Julian. When I report it, he's going to accuse Ms. Malone of cheating, of giving you the answers. He'll fire her for academic dishonesty and ensure she never teaches anywhere. The room spun. No, this couldn't. You did everything right, Dr. Vance said quietly. But sometimes being too successful is its own problem. Julian's mind raced. Then tell him I got 90. Exactly 90. Change the score. I can't falsify academic records. But if you report 98, Ellie loses everything anyway. Julian's voice cracked. Please, there has to be something. Dr. Vance was silent for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She smiled. There is one option, she said slowly. But it's risky, and it requires you to trust me completely. Anything. I don't report this score at all. I tell your father the testing equipment malfunctioned. We reschedule for 3 days from now. She leaned forward. In those 3 days, I document everything. Every teaching session. Every method Ms. Malone uses. I build irrefutable proof that her techniques are legitimate, revolutionary even. Then, when you ace the rescheduled exam, I present a full pedagogical report showing how she achieved these results. Julian's breath caught. You do that. I'm an educator first, Dr. Vance said. What that woman has accomplished with you, it's extraordinary. She deserves recognition, not accusations. Her expression hardened. But if we do this, you need to perform perfectly one more time, under even more pressure. Can you do that? Julian thought of Ellie, of her sacrifice, her belief in him. Yes, he whispered. Good. Then we have 3 days to build a case even your father can't deny. But neither of them knew that Richard Cross was already on a plane home, and he'd already made his decision. The next 3 days were a blur of documentation. Dr. Vance filmed teaching sessions, recorded Ellie's explanations, documented her methods with the precision of a researcher. Julian studied harder than ever, not from fear, but from determination. Ellie didn't know about the plan. Dr. Vance insisted, better she teach naturally, without the pressure of being observed for evidence. On the morning of the rescheduled exam, Julian felt ready. Then the front door slammed open. Julian, his father's voice. But Richard wasn't supposed to be back for 2 more weeks. Julian's stomach dropped as heavy footsteps echoed through the foyer. Richard burst into the dining room, still in his travel clothes, face flushed with fury. Where is she? Where's the maid? Dad, I don't. I received Dr. Vance's preliminary reports. The inconsistent scores. The failed exam. Richard's eyes were wild. I canceled the Singapore meetings. Flew back to handle this disaster myself. He turned to Dr. Vance. Where's Ms. Malone? I'm terminating her immediately. Mr. Cross, Dr. Vance stood, tablet in hand. You need to see something first. I don't need to see anything except. Your son scored 98%. Richard froze. What? On the most difficult practice exam I could design. He's not just ready for Westbridge. He'll likely place in the top 5% of all applicants. Richard stared, speechless. Dr. Vance tapped her tablet. I've spent the last 3 days documenting Ms. Malone's teaching methods. Her approach is extraordinary, combining conceptual understanding with practical application in ways I've never seen. She's not just tutoring your son. She's teaching him how to think. This doesn't change the fact that she acted without authorization. Actually, it changes everything. Dr. Vance's smile was sharp. Because I sent my findings to the Dean of Education at Westbridge Academy. They want to meet her. They're launching a new scholarship outreach program, and they need innovative educators who can reach struggling students. Richard's face went pale. You what? They're offering her an interview for a full-time teaching position. Salary, benefits, and tuition assistance to complete her degree. The silence was deafening. Julian's heart stopped. He looked at Dr. Vance, hardly daring to hope. You did that? Talent like hers shouldn't be wasted. Dr. Vance met Richard's eyes. Your son didn't need more pressure, Mr. Cross. He needed what Ms. Malone gave him: patience, belief, and room to learn without terror. Richard stood motionless, the implications crashing down on him. Then, from the doorway, Mr. Cross? Everyone turned. Ellie stood there in her uniform, eyes wide, having clearly heard everything. Richard looked at her, truly looked for perhaps the first time, and something in his carefully constructed armor cracked. You did this? He asked quietly. You took my failing son and turned him into this? Ellie lifted her chin. I didn't turn him into anything, sir. I helped him see what was already there. Richard's jaw tightened. For a long moment, no one breathed. Then he did something Julian had never seen. He pulled out his checkbook. Richard Cross wrote with precise, controlled strokes. The silence in the room was absolute. Julian watched his father's hand move across the check, unable to breathe, unable to process what was happening. Richard tore off the check and held it out. $60,000, he said quietly, as promised, for Julian's success. Ellie stared at the check, her hands trembling. Mr. Cross, take it. Richard's voice was softer than Julian had ever heard it. It's not charity. It's payment for what you accomplished. He paused, and something vulnerable flickered across his face. And it's an apology. An apology? Ellie whispered. For not seeing you. For not seeing my own son. Richard's jaw tightened. I built an empire by demanding perfection, by believing pressure creates diamonds. But I was wrong. He turned to Julian. I've spent years trying to mold you into someone you're not. Someone I thought you needed to be to survive my world. Richard's voice cracked slightly. But you were already extraordinary. I just couldn't see it because I was too busy seeing my own fears. Julian's throat burned. Dad, I'm not good at this. At being soft. At admitting mistakes. Richard took a shaky breath. But I want to try. No more threats. No more impossible standards. I want to know my son. The real one. He paused. If you'll let me. The words Julian had longed for his entire life. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. Richard stepped forward and pulled Julian into an awkward, unpracticed hug. It was stiff, uncertain, but it was real. And for the first time, Julian felt his father's arms shake with something that might have been grief. Dr. Vance cleared her throat gently. There's one more thing, Mr. Cross. Richard pulled back, wiping his eyes quickly. What? The Westbridge interview is tomorrow. For Ms. Malone. Dr. Vance's expression was calculating. But there's a problem. She has no formal teaching credentials. No completed degree. The position requires at least a bachelor's. Julian's heart sank. No. After everything. However, Dr. Vance continued, if a prominent education donor were to endow a scholarship specifically for non-traditional educators with demonstrated excellence, Westbridge would have the flexibility to hire her immediately while she completes her degree. She looked meaningfully at Richard. Richard was silent for a long moment, processing. Then he laughed. A real laugh, not the cold mockery Julian knew. You're asking me to create a scholarship fund. I'm suggesting an investment in educational innovation, Dr. Vance corrected. Ms. Malone's methods could transform how we teach struggling students. That has value beyond one tutoring arrangement. Richard looked at Ellie, who stood frozen, the $60,000 check clutched in her hands. "What would you do?" Richard asked her. "If you had the chance to finish your degree and teach." Ellie's voice was steady despite the tears on her cheeks. "I'd prove that brilliance isn't about privilege. That kids like Julian, kids who've been told they're not good enough, can achieve anything with the right support." She paused. "I'd build the program I wish had existed for me." Richard studied her for a long moment. Then he turned to Dr. Vance. "Draft the paperwork. The Cross Foundation will endow a $1 million scholarship fund for non-traditional educators. Ms. Malone will be the first recipient." Julian gasped. Ellie swayed, and Dr. Vance steadied her. "$1 million. Ellie couldn't finish. "It's an investment," Richard said simply. "In education, in my son's future, and in making sure other kids get the chance he didn't." He extended his hand. Ellie stared at it. The hand of the man who'd treated her as invisible for 3 years, now offering her a future. She took it. "Thank you," she whispered. Richard nodded. "Don't thank me yet. You still have to survive the Westbridge interview." A hint of his old intensity returned. "And Julian still has to ace that entrance exam." Julian straightened. "I will. I know." Richard's expression softened. "Because you're a Cross, and because you have the best teacher in the state." 3 weeks later, 2 letters arrived. The first, Julian Cross had been accepted to Westbridge Academy with a merit commendation. Top 5% of applicants. The second, Eleanor Malone had been appointed to the Westbridge faculty as their first Cross Foundation scholar and director of academic innovation. That evening, Richard ordered pizza. They ate in the kitchen, and for the first time in Julian's memory, his father asked about his dreams instead of his grades. Ellie joined them, no longer invisible, and Julian realized something profound. Sometimes the people everyone overlooks hold the power to save you, but only if you're brave enough to see them. 6 months later, Julian stood in the Westbridge Academy library, surrounded by students who used to intimidate him. Now he tutored them. "See, the derivative isn't just a formula," he explained to a struggling 9th grader. "It's the rate of change. Think of it like the speed of a story." The student interrupted, eyes lighting up. "How fast things are happening." Julian grinned. "Exactly." He'd learned that from Ellie. Mathematics as language, as story, as something beautiful instead of terrifying. Across campus, in a bright classroom with windows overlooking the quad, Ellie taught her first official class. 20 students, some from wealthy families, others on scholarship, all struggling with math anxiety. She wrote on the board, "Brilliance isn't about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to try." The words her mother had told her. The words she'd given to Julian. The words that had saved them both. After class, the dean stopped by. "Ms. Malone, the board is impressed. Your students' test scores have improved an average of 23% in just 1 semester." Ellie smiled. They were always capable. They just needed someone to believe it. "Well, keep doing whatever you're doing. And congratulations. Your MIT application was accepted. You'll start your master's program this fall, fully funded." Ellie's breath caught. MIT. After 10 years, she was going back, but this time on her own terms. That weekend, Richard hosted a small dinner. Not a business function, just family. Julian, Ellie, Dr. Vance, and Richard himself, attempting to cook pasta and failing spectacularly. "I think you're supposed to boil the water first, Dad," Julian said, trying not to laugh. Richard scowled at the pot. "I run a billion-dollar company. I can handle pasta." "Clearly," Ellie said, grinning as she took over. They ate together, laughing, sharing stories. Richard asked Ellie about her MIT courses. Ellie asked Julian about Westbridge. Dr. Vance shared horror stories from her teaching career. It was imperfect, awkward in places, but it was real. After dinner, Richard pulled Julian aside. "I'm proud of you," he said quietly. "Not because of your grades, because of who you're becoming." Julian's throat tightened. "I couldn't have done it without Ellie." "I know." Richard glanced at Ellie, who was helping Dr. Vance with dishes. "I almost destroyed something extraordinary because I couldn't see past my own expectations. I won't make that mistake again." He squeezed Julian's shoulder, a gesture that was becoming natural. "Neither will I," Julian said. Later that night, Julian found Ellie on the back porch, looking up at the stars. "Thinking about your mom?" he asked, sitting beside her. "Always." Ellie's smile was sad but peaceful. "I think she'd be proud. Of both of us." "You saved my life, you know," Julian said quietly. "That day in the hallway. I was in a really dark place." Ellie took his hand. "And you saved mine. You gave me a reason to fight again, to believe my knowledge mattered." She squeezed gently. "We saved each other." They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge. "Ellie," Julian said after a while. "Yeah. Thank you for seeing me when I was invisible." Ellie's eyes glistened. "Thank you for seeing me when everyone else looked away." Above them, stars wheeled through the infinite dark, billions of points of light, each one brilliant, each one fighting against the void. Just like them. Have you ever had someone believe in you when no one else did? Someone who saw your potential when you couldn't see it yourself? Drop your story in the comments below. And if this story touched you, hit subscribe. Because everyone deserves to be seen. Everyone deserves a chance. And sometimes, the most extraordinary people are the ones everyone overlooks.